Hello, and welcome to the first worked example video of the verbal reasoning section of the UCAT My Ed Space series. Today we're going to look at some worked examples for true, false, can't tell questions on the verbal reasoning section of the UCAT. I'm Eleanor, I'm one of the English teachers from My Ed Space, and I will be talking you through all of the content regarding the verbal reasoning section of the UCAT. There are some other videos up that explain what this section involves and each type of question and what it is asking you and some examples of it. This will be working through a couple of questions so that we can see the mindset behind it and you can do a little bit more practice before the exam. So we're going to model some exam skills in that we're not going to start by reading the passage, we're going to start by reading the question. We know that this is a true and false question set, so there is no reason to read the answers. We know that they're in the same order as always, true, false, and can't tell. The question is, some people start urban gardens because they are worried about where their food comes from. So worried about where their food comes from is key here. And I'm also going to notice this first word, some people start this, as well as the fact that this is a causal statement. So they start them because they are worried about where their food comes from. So let's take a look at where we can find this information. If we're scanning, we're going to be looking for production, we're going to be looking for reasoning and consequences here. We know that this passage starts discussing urban gardening and the fact that it's an increase. We're seeing the fact that some of these gardens are being created as a response to certain concerns. Rising concerns, so a synonym for worried, which is one of our keywords, that points us in a good direction, about global food supply chains and personal health. And then it carries on in the passage. Let's keep scanning, looking at the any more keywords we're looking for. Okay, it seems like there are disruptions to supermarket access during COVID. And we're still scanning. This seems like the support and then the reasoning for these gardening. It doesn't seem like there is any more discussion about why they're being created, but rather the yields and the consequences of creating them. So we can, based on this first paragraph and the fact that our information is found really only in this first paragraph here, to answer this question, if we're thinking about the words in the key sentence or the keywords in the sentence itself, in response to rising concerns about global food supply chains and personal health, many urban residents have begun transforming rooftops, balconies, and even abandoned lots into productive growing spaces. So this sounds like they are creating urban gardens because of the concerns about food supply and where it comes from. So this is going to be true for us. We know it's not false because it seems like some people have begun based on those concerns. And we know it's not can't tell because we're guided straight to this causal relationship of gardens being created because of concerns with food supply. So it's not can't tell either. Let's take a look at a different question with this same passage. Question 2, urban gardening is now the primary source of food in most cities. Okay, we see some words here that stick out. Primary source of food. Primary suggests that this is the first and foremost source of food in most cities. So that suggests that there will be quite a lot of cities dependent on urban gardening as their main source of food. Now we're leaving our outside knowledge at home and not in this world of the verbal reasoning section. So we're not going to think about our own experience of our relationship to urban gardenings or to food supply. Let's instead look at the availability and the success of urban gardens in being able to feed people. We know from our scanning in the first question that this is the reasoning for creating them. Here we can see that they've emerged in many metropolitan areas, again a synonym for city here. So this is guiding us towards maybe where our answer will be. Often supported. These initiatives promote food cultivation, but they also have other benefits, that they can provide educational opportunities. Okay, that's not really quite getting to idea that it's the primary source of food, which would definitely stand out, that it had taken over from other sources. Then we're noticing words like small scale gardening. Small scale suggests that this wouldn't be possible to do, to be the primary source of food based on the size of the urban gardening, small as described as small scale, and the idea that it would be the primary source of a city. So that's then possibly mitigating our answer. And then we keep scanning here. People are more likely to eat their own vegetables, perhaps. But then immediately the qualifier, this varies. And now we have, in this last paragraph, a key word here. However, that's a bridging word that suggests that the information here is going to change and mitigate the information above it. Seen as a substitute, and here we're guided straight to our answer. Large-scale agriculture, that would be appropriate for most cities, would be this on a larger scale than the little rooftop gardens that were described earlier. Experts caution that urban gardening should be seen as a supplement. A supplement, by definition, is not the main, but rather an additional idea to a main. So a supplement rather than a substitute. So it's not a swap out, but rather something that contributes to whatever the main source of food is. So this is not true, right? This statement is not true. It's not now the primary source of food in most cities. And it seems like the rest of this paragraph actually contrasts this by describing the yields as modest and access being uneven and further limitations and constraints. It seems like this is definitely not true. And also not that you can't tell, because we've got this place right here that suggests, and notice who it is who's suggesting, experts who caution that it is a supplement. So it can't have taken over as a primary source of food, and we know that because we have expert opinions telling us that that currently is an impossibility. So we can tell based on that information, rather if the sentence, rather than saying, however, some worry rather than experts caution, that might change our answer a little bit. But for now, and with this phrasing, we can say that question 2 is B, false. It was not the main source or the primary source of food in most cities. Question 3, everyone who tries urban gardening increases their vegetable intake. Okay, we definitely saw this phrase before. We saw vegetables here. So we know this is something to do it. And people who grow their own vegetables. Let's scan around this keyword, shall we? So there is also some evidence that people who grow their food may be more likely to eat them. Okay, interesting. Although this varies, again, a bridging phrase, although this varies by household and level of participation. So again, varies, it changes, it's different from one to the other. This phrasing contrasts with the phrasing of the statement, which says everyone who tries it increases their vegetable intake. This is much more definitive than this mitigating phrase. There are a lot of variables and doubt here. And this carries on in the next paragraph when we see that it's suggested to be a supplement, that the yields are uneven and modest, and that there are still limitations, so not everyone can fully participate. In fact, only a subset can participate. Notice another definitive word, can fully participate here, which means that not everyone is participating the same way. So we can't certainly say that everyone who tries urban gardening at all can increase their vegetable intake by urban gardening, because it depends on a lot of different factors here, and it also depends on the people themselves, because it says that this varies by household and level of participation. So we cannot say that this is true. However, can we say that this is definitely false? It's tough to say. We are looking here at a description of some people doing something and other people's evidence being different. We can't necessarily say for certain that this is false, because we don't have enough information. We've only seen some evidence, and we've only seen the focus on the limitations. So we're going to have to say can't tell for this third one here, because we don't have the information we need to definitively say this is false. It could be that everyone who tries urban gardening increases their vegetable intake, but we don't know for sure based on the passage, because there is too much doubt here. That's it for these worked examples. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.